Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah al-Alamin. Hakibatun lil mustaqim. Wala rahwana ila dalimin. Muhammadan huwa Sayyidina Makbubana inhu kana Rasuluna biyan. Salawatu Allah Ta'ala wa salamu alayhi. Halin salam bikum. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Saeed, and my dear sister Amina. Today I will embark on continuing talking about the Surah 48, Surah Fetch, and I will go more into some of the history behind it because it's very important. And I will equate this to the plight of the black man in America as well. And because there's some similarities in what happened to the Muslims in the Medina at the beginning. So Subhanahu wa ta'ala in his wisdom had given now victories to the Muslims. One of the very last was the Battle of the Khandaq, which, you know, the Muslims dug a trench around the Medina that helped to protect the Medina because they were outnumbered, and this was successful. As the Muslims did ward off the pagan Arab tribes at that time, he sent a wind, and it was so vicious that it sent them packing to go back to Mecca and to the other surrounding areas. And then they reached this treaty, and this treaty was not viewed very highly by many Muslims. They did not understand the rationale behind it. They knew they needed a treaty, but there were some things that they had to give up they could not understand. And some of their compatriots had to be given up because of the rules that were inside the agreement. So anyway, Subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this surah, beautiful surah, and it has a lot of tangible information for us, even for today's time, to give us hope, because we are living in such a time that is very, very difficult for us. And it's unfortunate that we are in such a dire straits. And unfortunately, again, that is something that Subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to remedy in his time, and we've been assured that it's going to be remedied. And so we will wait for this remedy. I'm hoping that it'll come in my lifetime to see that. I would love to see this transpire. And so let's get out of here. The Muslims were given power, and they were given bounty beyond belief. But now they were in a situation where doubt began to creep in because they were surrounded by the enemy. And there's something that we don't talk about much. We always hear, but we never talk about. It's the role of the Jews. Yes, they played a pivotal role in this, a very pivotal role. And this has been a contention between the Jews and the Muslims for thousands of years. And they played an important role in the situation, what happened. So when we look at this, I'm going to show something here. No, that's very interesting. I had something here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Here is a map of the Jazira Arab, as they call this in Arabic. I have this in here in English. And so that way, those who are not too familiar with the landscape, my brother Saeed, he lived there. He knows very well. He knows Oman. He knows about the Saudi Peninsula and whatnot. And this is how it is today. Of course, there are some differences in boundaries, because there's no such things as boundaries as we know. But you know what happened there. The countries were split up and so forth and so on. But we know that area as Hijaz. we know this is the area that this is what is called, the Hijaz. And those people that were living mainly in the deserts, and me and Saeed, both for Brother Saeed here, who's here now, we've been arguing with our brother about this issue for I don't know how many months now, but the dwellers of the harsh desert were these people here. And you see they're black. If we took that garb off and we put them there in Compton, Long Beach, or in Dallas, Texas, or Baltimore, Maryland, and he walked down the street, in American type clothes or clothes that the brothers wear, nobody would ever know who these guys are unless they open their mouth and then you hear the accent. But this is who the brothers who were dwelling in the deserts for thousands of years, and they are quote unquote Arabs, but we know them as Afro-Arabs. And so, anyway, I gave you a backdrop so you kind of put things in your perspective, how you could understand. And we don't want to get into a class on race and so forth and so on. But we know that the original Saudi people we know were black folk, bottom line. So we start here, and I will put this in the Arabic language first for our brothers and sisters who are not very well versed in English yet. So they can read this and understand what I'm going to talk about here, and what has happened, and this surah brought out some facts and things that happened, and the translations to what I said here is here. The three things happened in this case before and after conquest: provocation and evil of the polytheists. This is the tribes, the betrayal of the Jews, and the settlement with the polytheists against the Muslims. Brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. This is how I equate this with the brothers there and their family, the black man's family in the United States. Let me listen to this analogy. Here you are sitting in a country where you're surrounded by the enemy. You can't go to Canada. You can't go into Mexico. You can't really actually go into Europe. You are surrounded by people who do not like you. You have no hope in sight. This is kind of like what the black man in America faces today. He is in a trapped situation. The Muslims, even though they had bounty, they begin to have doubt because they were surrounded by the enemy. And the provocation of evil, when if you notice something about Islam, when the detractors of Islam, they begin to show their shar is evil in Arabic, from their heart. And they begin to conjure up many things. This is what happened with the polytheists, with the Arab tribes who were against the Muslims. They began devising all kind of devilish plans and schemes. Then we have the part of the betrayal of the Jews. And then at first they were in a secret agreement with the enemies of Islam, the Arab tribes, to do away with the Muslims. So the Muslims know that. And the Prophet, ﷺ, he knew this as well. And he was trying to keep the spirits up within the Muslims so that way they would not get discouraged. But we're human beings. And the Prophet ﷺ knew this. But they began to get a handle on what was happening here. And they began to get, subhanahu wa ta'ala began to give visions of victory to the Prophet ﷺ, and he told him. So the verse was, the verse helped us in this sense for the Muslims to understand that the manifest victory is on its way, it's coming. And the betrayal of the Jews, now let's preface something here. Not all of the Jewish tribes were against the Muslims. There were some who agreed to the Islam. They had no qualms with it. Others joined with the Muslims as well. Some stayed neutral. But if you can believe this, there was a sizable Jewish community in the Hijaz, which we call Saudi Arabia. There was a sizable community, and they had especially Khaybar. Khaybar is famous for its vineyards and its oasis and so forth, dates and whatnot. And they had prospered very well in agriculture, and they had built a fortress, and so forth and so on. And so they began to betray the Muslims. When the scholars of the Jews begin to go to them and tell them they have to adopt the new religion because their scholars tested the prophet. If you heard one class I had before, I think on Saeed's class I talked one time about this as well, where the prophet ﷺ was tested by the Jewish scribes, the scholars, who knew the signs of the prophet, and the prophet was delayed in answer because it's something that he said, and it angered subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not angered him to a point, but he delayed, and he gave this because he wanted to see how much patience our prophet ﷺ had. Finally, he gave him the answer, and he went to the scholars of the Jews and told, they knew now he was actually the prophet that they were told that they would not come among the Jews, they would come among the Arabs. So they now knew, and they spread this out, that now it's time to follow. But 99.9% of them refused to do this. They were not going to have nothing with it, and so forth. And they began to have joint agreements with the Quraysh and the other Arab tribes against the Muslims. So this was something. And then the other part to this, of the last part, was subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down tranquility to the hearts of the believers. With all this adversity going around them, subhanahu wa ta'ala quiet their hearts. As the Prophet ﷺ was getting the visions after visions, explaining things, the believers begin to see things that he said that he saw, and they begin to see these some miracles, so to speak, and the things that he said will come true came to pass. And so the tranquility in the heart of the Muslims was assured at this time. And this is some of the things that happened that gave us this cause, gave us this tranquility that we know the victory is at hand, and the victory did come, as we know. So when I have to mention as well one of the Arab tribes, because here's the contention, and I'll get into the verses. One of the Arab tribes that was actually expelled from the Hijaz was because when the Muslims began to come in there was an agreement that they called the agreement with the Medina. The Jews violated that big time. They began to go after Muslim women because they were accustomed at that time to the Muslims in Jahiliyyah, and the higher echelon of the Jews of this particular clan were given special privileges. So when they come to visit and so forth like that, they were given Arab women to bed down with, so forth and so on. And this is the way it was. Now Islam came across, and they thought it was going to be the same thing. So they believed that they had access to the Muslim sisters. And the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba and the Muslimin, they said they would not have that. So they went after them and expelled them. Okay, now this is before this other situation came about. And I'll get into that, inshallah. Now, subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the verse 2 here that, verse 2 here, subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that, before I got into that, remember last week I talked about verse 1. Verse 1, we know what that is here, where we have to manifest victory. Inna fatha laka fathan mubina. Well, we know we had to manifest victory. Now we have the second verse here where subhanahu wa ta'ala says here that Allah may forgive thee thy faults and past, those to follow, fulfill his favor to thee and guide thee on a straight way. This here, the tafsir, the scholars all said this belonged, that subhanahu wa ta'ala said he's going to forgive our Prophet ﷺ for what he's done in the past and what he's done in the future. But he was basically almost a perfect human being. But every human being, you can't have everything, because there's things in our heart, there's things in our mind that are sinful. But even though we don't carry it out, subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. Our Prophet ﷺ was given this said that he was going to be forgiven for this. And our forgiveness will come at another verse. So this is important, my brothers and sisters, the verse 2 about this. And again, the yeah, here we go. And as I said, subhanahu wa ta'ala says he forgive his sins. Well, what's important about this is that it shows that the correlation between the surah before that, which is also related to Surah Fatah and Surah Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, these two are interconnected. If you read Surah Muhammad, you see a lot of things in there that lead us up to the Fatah. And so this is important news for us, my dear brothers and sisters, that we look at the history and how subhanahu wa ta'ala dealt with his messenger and how the messenger then relayed these things to us. This is important for us to know because there's a hierarchy and we have to understand that the Muslim must obey Allah. He must obey his Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. You remember that. And part of the tafsir of this, speaking of that, the tafsir I'm using is Sayyid Qutb, rahimahullah, who was assassinated a long time ago. I call him Sheikh Tafsir. My wife got another name for him because his tafsir is off the charts when it gets down to, if you want to know about the Quran and you want to know the tafsir of the Quran, I prefer his, and also secondly, Qurtubi out of Andalus. I love, these are tafsirs that I prefer. When I do and learn the tafsir, I prefer to go from them. But I'm using, say, Qutb's book, tafsir, in the shade of the Quran, and this is what I use to prepare my lessons. So anyway, this is the verse, and we see this, and this goes for subhanahu wa ta'ala going to forgive the sins of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And then we got number 3, where verse 3, and that Allah may, subhanahu wa ta'ala, may help thee with a powerful help. This is important, brothers and sisters, because he's not going to help. Preface that, what I mean by that is all human beings been guaranteed something because he gives us air, he gives us water, he gives us land, he gives us food. Every human being has this because this is from the mercy of subhanahu wa ta'ala, no doubt. But there's certain times and things that we need special help. Subhanahu wa ta'ala helps those who are basically have been persecuted and downtrodden. We know that as well. So we know here that subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse, he will give the help to those who believe. And we know this to be the fact because we've seen this time after time. And you remember something, the Muslims prospered so well through the errors until we changed the Sharia. Then we begin to fall. It's funny, isn't it? From all this time, we were running under the Sharia and we had empires, sultanates, one after another, all over the place. They were victorious. They were wealthy. They were bringing people Islam. And then by the late 1700s, 1800s, the Sharia was slowly broken down because now we had the ultimate empire and so forth and so on. And they began to sway away from the Sharia and they began to do things. And then you know what's happening? They started having weird alliances until they were basically, gone out by the wayside. And then by this time too, the colonial period began to usher in and the Sharia was gone. And from that point, we've been walking in a wilderness for over 100 years now, basically in the wilderness. We forgot all about the Sharia. We run, our governments today basically run what the two-bar governments tell us to run. And then we take a little bit of the Sharia. We cannot get victory this way. The help that subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking about in verse 3, we cannot get it. We cannot get it because of what we're doing now. And we see these problems after problems because he's not helping us. He's not helping us too much. And this is why we have the problems. We should not see the enemy running around through our countries free, doing what they want to do. We should not. We should not be able to see them do this. But because we don't have the Sharia anymore, we see this. They do what they want to do. And our governments, basically the 57 governments, I shouldn't say all. There's a few who fight them back, who they don't mess with them as much. But the majority of them are so uncovered by the American money and then the IMF and by the UN and so forth and so on. And this is the problem. So if you want to help from subhanahu wa ta'ala, it says, number 3, and that Allah may help thee with a powerful help, you must obtain the favor of subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what? His law and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If you don't have that, you can't get this powerful help that he's talking about to vanquish your enemies before you. Our enemies are sitting down eating with us. They're telling us what to eat. They're even telling us what to wear now. They're even closing up the masjids. They're even having Muslims, they even changed the many of the Sharia, and they'll tell you you don't have to pray. They go after certain Muslims and deem them to be terrorists when they're just abiding by what subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered and our Prophet has ordered, and they'll tell, they say, hey, well, these guys over here, they follow what the subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and so we call them terrorists. And let's get deeper into this number 3. Let's look at it from another point here. There's a lot of people who differ with me. They argue with me. Even here in Morocco, they argue with me when they see the tubab. And they know the tubabs are out of the embassy. They know this. And they say, well, I see him going to the masjid. I see him doing this. But what law is he enforcing? Is he enforcing the Sharia? No. Is he enforcing the Sunnah? No. Is he's trying to take people from the Sharia? He's trying to take the people from the Sunnah Allah. What Muslim does this? I see through them, and many other people see through them as well. Yes, they go to the masjid. That's their job. They get paid to do that. They're not Muslims in this regard. They enforce their laws. They enforce the laws of the Tuba. They don't enforce the laws of the Muslims. They're here. Yes, they dress. They even marry Muslim women, but they're not Muslims because they enforce the laws of others. And subhanahu wa ta'ala did not ordain not one Muslim to enforce the law of democratia or communist ways and means, none whatsoever. So we have to get that fact straight. The help cannot come because since these guys are here and they're roaming around, changing the landscape of the Muslims, we cannot get in. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is waiting for us to vanquish them. And we need help, but we can't get the help because we are not doing what we're supposed to do. That's a bottom line. That's hard hitting, but this is a true fact. And again, a Muslim is those who, Muslims, the best of us, are those who follow the Quran and the Sunnah. This is the bottom line, brothers and sisters. You cannot say I enforce the democratic ways of me. You talk about you're a Muslim and so forth. I always ask those who say this. I say, you show me in the Quran where subhanahu wa ta'ala is ordained the laws of kufr as his governance. Never. He's never done this. He's talked against it. And he has a verse telling you that he will never allow their way to triumph over the Muslims, which is Surah 4, 144. 141. Surah 4, 141, subhanahu wa ta'ala says he will not allow them to triumph. Yes, right now they are doing things, but have they stopped the masters yet? No. They want to close them up, but they cannot. The Muslims here will fight them for that. They cannot. They want to stop the adhan plays every salat here on all Muslim lands. They can't stop it. They want to, they can't. They try to stop the Muslims, especially certain Muslims going to masjid, they still find a way to go. If they can't, they go pray together. Or if they can't, they pray by themselves. They still pray. So subhanahu wa ta'ala is still giving us some of his help because we still have Muslims who take his way and the sunnah of Prophet fundamentally. This is important. Brothers and sisters, you have to ask the question of yourself, what do you want? You want to be liked by the disbelievers? You want to be told that you are a good black man or you're a good Muslim? Is this what you want? Is this what you desire in the dunya? Or do you want to follow what subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered and what our Prophet ordered? You want to follow the favorite 3 generations? Do you want to follow their lead that lead you to Jannah? Or do you want to follow the disbelievers so you can get kudos from them to tell you that you're a good man because you're doing what they tell you to do? That's the bottom line to this, brothers and sisters. You have to ask that question. And those in the West, you have a difficult time. I live there. I know you have to barter in between because you have livelihoods. You can't go and do certain things. You have livelihoods. You have to pay for things because you don't. You be on the street. How are you going to fend for your family when your family's out in a car? You cannot. So we understand this, and I'm prefacing that in an ideal situation you fight, but in situations like in America, it's very difficult to do that. Fight with your heart, what you want, but your hands and so forth, you have to abide by the laws, and until it's time you can leave. So we look at this, and we say to ourselves, well, what would happen to the believers at this time, this feta? What was going on with the believers? As I said to you, they were surrounded by the enemy, the Jews who hated them. The Christians also were involved in this. The pagan tribes were involved in this. Then things begin to happen here. And I'll put this in Arabic for our brothers and sisters in North Africa, and in the middle we see who follow my program now. Here you can get a glimpse what that we're trying to say here about the suffering of the Muslimin in the Medina, who they had these begin to have, which is normal, bad thoughts of losing, being killed, losing their way, what they're going to do if they can't become Muslims, because Shaitan beginning to enter into their mindset. Then as here they begin to possess many of the Muslimin doubt in their hearts, and so forth and so on. And then subhanahu wa ta'ala begin to send ru'yas after ru'yas to our Prophet alayhi salam. And this is what it's here. I just translate this basically in English for you, but I'll give you this here. Believers in the city suffered bad thoughts. Bad thoughts meaning they had doubt. They were scared. They didn't know what was going to go on. Many believers had doubts in their hearts. But subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed vision after vision to our Prophet alayhi salam, which is true. He did this. And he brought the Muslims to be stronger, because these visions by the Prophet, he was explaining this was going to happen. This was going to happen. And the believers they were strengthened by this. And this is a miracle, my brothers and sisters. If you can think about this, let me give you this analogy so you can kind of think. Here you are, and I'm going to use my hood, Compton, and say Long Beach because it's next door, my brother Saeed. Say we're in the hood here. Suddenly we have Iranians. They moved into the area, okay, say East Long Beach area, okay, and say Eastern Compton. They've been there for approximately 50, 60 years. They went to school with us. They bartered with us. They have stores with us. And they had relations with us. But then the Tubab decided he wanted to come into Compton and Long Beach and take it over. Throw out the brothers and their families so they can do things. They can put industrial parks and they can put things in there. They begin to align themselves with the Iranians. You see the analogy? Now, how do you deal with that when you're surrounded by this enemy? This is what the Muslims were facing, brothers and sisters. This was they were facing. And it was a difficult time for them. So you can imagine that sitting there in Compton and Long Beach. The people you thought was okay with you were not. They waited for the period of time, and then when the enemy came, they sighted under your nose and in the secret with them to throw you out of Compton and Long Beach. This is what the Muslims were facing, and why they had fear and they had doubt creeped in. So I wanted to get you to understand that. As the Muslims begin to have certain things happen to them, and victories, small victories here and there, things begin to come about. And then again, here for our brothers and sisters who speak Arabic, here we talk about came the opening, and then the gratitude upon the sakina that was sent to their hearts. Subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this for them. And so the gratitude for this was overwhelming, and it came from the opening, their gratitude for tranquility that's descended in their hearts from Allah the Most High. This is what I wanted to do one time, talk about this word sakina. Sakina is a beautiful word. That sakina is about tranquility. Subhanahu wa ta'ala defines it very well in the Quran. He uses this. And we even have ayats in the Quran to give you this solace when you are troubled. Subhanahu wa ta'ala give these particular ayats in the Quran that's got this word in it to give you tranquility, especially when you hear it recited at night. It brings you into deep sleep. It drives away the devil and the minions, the shayatan, away from you, and brings the whole house into tranquility. I play inside the house. The family likes that. People like to hear it, but inside the house, the family likes to hear that. I put it on at nighttime, and the heights of Sakina, and everybody have deep sleep because you hear beautiful melodic words, and you hear the reciters who recite it very well, and it brings you deep, deep sleep and tranquility in your heart and in your mind. So the Muslims begin to have this. And this is why I say, my brothers and sisters, that this history behind this surah is something else. And why we can use it today, especially the black man in his family, because it's important that he understands his position, because he's living in the wilderness for 400 years. He was taken out of his land, and he's been living in wilderness for 400 years. He still don't understand his situation. He knows, but he can't do nothing about it. And that's why I said he's surrounded by enemies. The enemies are everywhere around him, and he's alone, and he doesn't know how to handle himself. The only way we can get out of it, as Malcolm said, you must come to Islam. I'm just talking openly because this is my channel and I'm a Muslim, and I believe wholeheartedly that we would greatly prosper if we came to Islam. I believe this so heartily because I see the tranquility comes from the brothers who are hardened criminals, and they come into prison, they come out, they become model citizens because of Islam, and they do a transformation that's incredible. We can do this to our brothers and sisters and whatnot, and we will get the bounty from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and he will give us the direction and what to do and how we would defend against this enemy. Should we stay among them, or should we go and have different land from them, or should we leave that land altogether and return back to Africa? These are questions that will be answered by Subhanahu wa Ta'ala when the brothers and sisters there are ready. They're not ready yet. They're not ready. This is why they continue to walk the wilderness, because Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is not giving them the direction, because too many are still worshiping the Tuba Ilah, their God. You know, Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam, who's made blonde hair and blue eye. They're still worshiping that. When Subhanahu wa Ta'ala told you don't do it. Even the Torah tells you don't do it. The graven images, don't worship it, you still do it. And then the others are just atheists. They don't believe in anything. So we have problems there. This is why I love this surah, because I equate it a lot to the black man in America, brothers and sisters. And we should, you know, each one of us, if we can do our job, it's easier said than done. I understand. I lived there. I know how difficult it is. The evil is so entrenched there. The killing is so entrenched. The fear is so entrenched. You don't know what to do. You live in a tenuous situation because the Tubab is after you genocidally. He wants to wipe you out. That's the bottom line. So you have a problem. This surah here will kind of give you indications on how to handle that and how to bring this bounty. But you must come to Islam, brothers and sisters. I must say this to you, those who are Christians and Jews, Hebrews, you must come to Islam in order to get the full bounty, because you're not going to receive it as you are today. You cannot, because Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is your own scholars, the Jewish scholars, advocated it, said you must follow the new prophet and his religion. That's the bottom line, brothers and sisters. You must do that. So anyway, we covered these first 4 verses pretty quickly because they are not hard to understand. And I want you to get the feeling to understand this. And you have to understand the circumstances in the Medina. It was frightening. And imagine, here you are in Compton in Long Beach, and we're surrounded by Iranians and the Tubab. The racist Tubab are in there trying to position us out. They're trying to close up our stores. They're trying to go after the woman at night. They try to go after the brothers at nighttime. The police are coming in to go after the brothers. This is the kind of situation brings fright to the hearts of people because they're surrounded by the enemy. This is the Muslims at this time. They were having tough time. And again, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala brought them this victory. And it was victory after victory. And things happened. Now, let me tell you about Khaybar. The Jews had a secret pact with the Quraysh and the Arab tribes who were against against the Muslims. Now, also, you got to remember something. Not all of the other tribes were against the Muslims. Many were sitting back waiting to see what's going to happen between Quraysh and the Muslims. They were waiting. Some did not take sides at all. Others had secret agreement with the Quraysh and with the Jews in secret, hoping that they would gain bounty from, if they raided and won against the Muslims, they would come in and get share of the booty that they took from the war. You know how it is when they come, they raid a place, they take the woman as a present, and they take wealth and so on and so on. Many of them were looking for that as well. If the Muslims be defeated, they would take the wealth. So this is what was happening at this time as well. But many were sitting back waiting. When the treaty came down, the treaty was a fetah, was an opening, a victory. Why? Because in it, the Prophet ﷺ all argued for the position that other tribes had the right to go where they wanted. If they wanted to go and stay in Jahiliyyah and be with the Mushrikeen, they could. If they wanted to join with Muhammad ﷺ and the Muslims, they could. And when it was signed, now the emissaries begin to go out, and the Muslim, the Arab tribes begin to come to the Muslims in bunches, in waves. And the Quraysh will see this when they took Mecca. They came with soldiers 10,000 or more strong. And so this is why I say we call this chapter the way it is, the Fetah, the victory, because there were so many things, brothers and sisters. And this is a history and also a learning tool for you, because the Muslim should be well-rounded in understanding his religion, not only just pray, not how many rak'ahs you make or how you make salah. Islam is more than that. Islam is about education, history, about your ilah, about subhanahu wa ta'ala, how to worship him. It's many, many things, components in it. You have to be well-versed in all of that. Why do you think we call people scholars? Because the scholars are famous, and they have adopted and they have learned the 10 famous books, and they're masters at that, making them wise. Subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, if you understand the Quran, Subhanahu wa ta'ala has places in there where he talks about the ulama. That's right. And he favors them. He loves them. This is why we have to respect them. Today, we don't have respect for the people who are scholars. We don't even, people of knowledge, they're not respected. They're not. But Subhanahu wa ta'ala says in here, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble by disrespecting these scholars and these men of knowledge. You should be very careful doing that. Very, very careful. Because if you don't know the Quran, you can be held responsible for it. Subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the ulama, and he gave the special privileges because of the knowledge. He gave these certain ones the knowledge. That's just the way it is. He gave certain people, okay, you know how it is about human beings. Like my brother Saeed, if you want to go to business, you don't come to me. I'm a businessman. Your money will probably be gone. I'm not just go to Saeed. Happy companion, Saeed, our brother Saeed, he's a businessman. He can take something, he can take a piece of rock and develop it, and he can make money from it. That's how good the brother is in business. See, I cannot. I'll get a building, this and that, and we all lose money because I'm not a businessman. You see the analogy what I'm talking about. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has picked some of us to be scholars and to be men of knowledge and to convey this knowledge to the rest of us. Others have certain traits, like our brother Saeed. Business, the Muslims, help the Muslims, help them to gain their wealth and help them to come into Muslim lands, and how for him to start. He's a genius at that. That's his forte. He knows very well this. I don't. You can't come to me with that. The minute you come with me about business, I'll refer you to him, because that's his way. Now, just like him, when things come Islamically, he cannot handle that because it's not his thing. He doesn't have this yet. So he refers it to me. That's how it's supposed to work. People come to me about business. I say, look, you go to him. When it comes about Islamic matters, they come to me. That's the way it's supposed to work, because each one of us has our strengths and our weaknesses. I hope you understand that analogy, brothers and sisters. And so remember now, the tafsirs of the Quran is nothing to play with, because you have to be very wise and understanding of this. You have to understand this, and it takes time, and you have to be taught it. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has given some of us this, and I'm happy for that. I got some of it. I'm still learning every single day. And I always try to convey this, what I've learned to my brothers in the United States in particular. And the tafsir of the Quran is a must for all of us to understand and learn, because that's the only way we're going to get the full bounty from Subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want to help, we have to have that. And brothers and sisters, remember what your brother's talking here. Stay close to the Quran and the Sunnah. You can't go wrong. My brothers and sisters, stay close. Keep the Quran and the Sunnah close to your heart. Subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you for it. He will bless you, and he will give you a lot of blessings. And the feta will come to you, even if you're sitting in Compton or Long Beach. It will come. Even if you're sitting in Compton, Long Beach, or in Baltimore, or in Washington, D.C., or in the hood in Mobile, Alabama, or Atlanta, Georgia, it will come to you if you maintain this. This is important, brothers and sisters, to keep that in mind. And you can't obtain this without understanding his book. You have to try to understand that. So, brothers and sisters, we will continue the series on this because it's so important that we have an understanding about the Surah Feta. It is so encompassing. And to be honest, each verse, we could spend almost a week, 2 weeks discussing it. It's how lengthy it is. Sayyid Qutb, in his wisdom, he wrote quite a bit about the tafsir in this, about this particular surah, because it is so important. And the Arabic that he uses is not very difficult. And he's broken it down very easily to you. And that's why I love this, the Sayyid Qutb, just kind of showing you some of it here. And this is the first tafsir that I got, thanks to my wife. It was her that gave me this. And, the first time matter of fact, I picked it up, I looked at the wording, and I said, whoa, what is this? And I didn't know how you're supposed to use it. I didn't know, and then as I start to learn, and I start having classes and stuff like that, and I start seeing some things coming out of the UAE and whatnot, I begin to follow the Sharia classes, and then I begin to understand the tafsir better. And so when I need something, I want something reliable, I go to Sayyid Qutb and Qurtubi, Rahimullah Jamia. I love them both. Their tafsirs are outstanding in my eyes. I love them. And they're what they brought for us to understand the word Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They've done this very, very well. And how they broke it down, you can understand. He puts you there. But Sayyid Qutb, what he also does, he puts you back in the 7th and 8th century. But he also brings you to the time now. He makes the correlations between then and now, where other tafsirs don't do this, but he does. He talks about that. He brings you to what's happening in his time before he was assassinated. So he brought you to modern times, which is good. And my brothers and sisters, we look at this again, this beautiful surah, and we ask questions to ourselves. Can we, how can we achieve this manifest, this victory? How can we get this? Again, I've always answered by one thing, the Quran and the Sunnah. That will give you, this is the start of the Fetah. This is the start, my brothers and sisters. This is the Fetah, the Quran, the mercy that was given to us. Subhanahu wa ta'ala made you Muslims. You must use that. He said he gave you this. It's something that not many people have. Yes, there's a billion of us, but how many people in the world? And you think about that. He's selected certain people to have this. You take advantage of that, brothers and sisters. Take advantage of that. And I know there's aid now probably in the West. We'll have ours tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. And I want to also wish the brothers, the Eid Mubarak, Saeed, to everybody because this is a good time for us. And I love the Salat Eid because I know the benefits behind it. But also, there's something too after that, because you get to run back and then you make your sacrifice. I know in Muslim states, but I know in the West you can't do that. But that day, the food, everything tastes different on Eid. The day after the Salat Eid, you go home. Even the normal foods that you eat has a different taste to it. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's psychological, but something to me, it does. It kind of changes the food and has its taste. And even the day is everything is tranquil. I noticed this day, I don't see many flies around. I don't see the birds much. It seems like everybody's tranquil. The dog's not barking much. You know what I mean? And I saw that, and it's a miracle from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. We have such a beautiful religion. We have such a beautiful religion. And we have a Lord who loves us and stuff like that. And he's given us a guide in the Quran, brothers and sisters. You can't ask for anything easier than that. He's given us the guide. And then he's got a prophet who explains that. And we follow that. We're on our way. We're on our way, bi'ithnillah, to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and with his permission. And you can't go wrong, brothers and sisters, in that. So just take those words as advice. And remember something, brothers and sisters. Muslims, you remember what the Prophet said. The Muslim is a brother to every Muslim. Don't be shameful of your brother. Meaning this. If you know that you cannot build a house and you can't repair a house, why don't you give the business to a Muslim brother that does? Don't give it to a disbeliever. And don't have jealousy over him either. Just because you don't know how to repair a house or do the house repair, but your brother that goes to the masjid, he does. So give him the business because he has the expertise in that. Don't be shameful, brothers in the United States, of that. You guys rely on one another. Somebody, the Muslims, is good in real estate. Somebody is good in mathematics. Somebody's an excellent professor and knows history that can be a benefit to some Muslim. You guys interchange, use one another in a positive way. Don't be jealous of one another. And like I said, Saeed, brother, business, like I said, he can get a rock, he can put it down there, he can make money off of it. He's that good in business. He knows how to do that. But he refers to things Islamically, he doesn't know. He doesn't try to play a game with that. He sends it to me. You see, that's how it's supposed to work. That's what the brother's supposed to do. That's how we work in Islam. So even the sisters, the same thing. This is the feta. This is the feta from Allah. This is how we're supposed to act, brothers and sisters, among ourselves. Even if we're far distant, we all have strengths and weaknesses. We try to help one another in those weaknesses. And then the strengths that we have, we use that. We help other Muslims in that. This is my advice to you, my brothers and sisters, in learning your religion and also being close to the Ummah and wishing for its prosperity. So I'll be closing here with that, and I will continue this, inshallah, probably after Eid, after 3 days celebration and whatnot. I'll go continue into this because this particular surah is so important, brothers and sisters. It is so important that I want to relay this to you because it has a lot of things that I can see that affects the Black community inside the United States in particular. And this is one reason why when I see it and I read it, I think about the Black man in America, the Black man and his family in America, and why that's my community, and I want to see it prosper. And it's very difficult for them to prosper in the conditions that they're in today. And this is why I think about them, and this is why I hope that they could even read this, even as disbelievers, as Jews and Christians, as Jews and Hebrews, and they come and read this. There's a lot of benefits to this particular surah for them to understand. Even in the English language, they can read it and they can start kind of getting a glimpse. So my brothers and sisters, with that said, thank you, my dear brother Saeed, for coming on, and my dear sister Amina, thank you for coming on. And Eid Mubarak Saeed to all brothers and sisters everywhere in this world. And I hope that your Eid is good and that you eat well, you share your wealth and you make a lot of dhikr to subhanahu wa ta'ala to ask that you have another Eid the coming year. And I'm hoping each one of you will prosper and that you would stay in good health. And be careful, because this virus is rearing its head up again everywhere. Be careful, brothers and sisters. Please be careful, because it's coming again. Just be careful, okay? Well, I'll leave you, my brothers and sisters, with the beautiful words of Jannah. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.